Are our endpoints even coming back to the office?
That was a question I asked in a presentation earlier last year already. And the question still remains the same. Hi, I'm Axel with Baramuni Software. Welcome to my home office slash guest room slash ironing room. You can probably relate. In the past year, we have seen quite a few changes in the IT world, and endpoint management has become a whole new role and priority for many organizations. So in this presentation, I will go into the different scenarios you may encounter and what you have to be aware of when it comes to your endpoint management. What happened so far? I'm pretty sure you're aware of this, but I still want to touch on what happened and where are we standing right now. It's been almost a year since the states and companies had to go into lockdown or in some sort of lockdowns again and switch to a whole new way of working, like working from home or implementing extreme safety measurements and office shifts, etc. And a year in the IT is a very, very, very long time. I mean, that's already 15 years in doc years. Or, to be even more accurate, converting computer years into human years makes it about 17 years. Yes, computerinhumanyears.com is a real thing. To be honest, in the beginning nobody expected it to be lasting this long. Most of us assumed everything might be back in the summer last year. And that made a lot of organizations implement stopgap solutions, and they didn't plan for possibly years ahead. So what happened in this time? For once, to all who didn't work on laptops before, had to hand out laptops to the users to be able to work from home. You might still have some machines in the office for the users to remote in, or in abandoned conference rooms and offices which haven't really been touched since. Then we got 2 new Windows 10 versions since May. So everyone on an older version than 1909 has to make sure to upgrade as soon as possible to still receive patches for their Windows environment. And if you're not on enterprise licensing, you even have to update from the 1909 version pretty soon. But Microsoft was not the only one who blessed us with some updates. Adobe almost gave us 2 releases per month of the Acrobat DC and Reader. Especially here you want to patch in a timely manner to avoid unnecessary long-term open gaps through known vulnerabilities. And then these times are just a dream for scammers and hackers. The FBI announced last April already that the cyberattacks were 4 times higher than before the pandemic. And that was just 1 month in. About 1 in 3 cyberattacks nowadays are coronavirus related. You probably heard of a few cases with phishing emails by attracting users with masks and sanitizers, as well as COVID statistic charts to make people give out their personal data or download malicious malware. The users are not necessarily in their safe environment behind a firewall anymore, and may be much easier to reach from the outside. And you spend all the money on firewalls and package inspectors, etc., and then the users are simply connected through their private ISP router. Where do we go from here? With states, countries, and businesses reopening, there are different ways how it might continue from here. Twitter, for example, announced pretty early already that they want to keep their users working from home forever and don't ask them to come back at all. Amazon, Facebook, and others, which used to be pretty strict about employees needing to be in the office, joined this movement and don't make it mandatory to come to the office anymore. It will be most likely be up to the user where they are working from and if they want to go to a provided office or not. On the other hand, others already went back to their normal routine, like some schools, for example. Before I go into the different work environment scenarios, I would like to go into the different target groups we encounter in general. One size fits all doesn't always work in our diverse and complicated work environments anymore. Every department has different workflows, processes, and schedules. While you can easily schedule updates and software deployments in some areas in the middle of the day, you have to give the end user more control over scheduled tasks in other areas. Or maybe you only have a very short maintenance window to begin with. Once that is defined, you will quickly realize that different platforms will perform differently have different kind of patches, and aren't easily accessible. Microsoft endpoints can vary from Windows XP to Windows 10, which then builds up in different versions again. This will have a big influence on installation times and end-user interactions. And we also can't ignore smartphones and tablets anymore. These devices have great remote management capabilities, but usually with focus on the user as the owner instead of the organization. That's nothing we have to worry about with our servers in the back end, but those come with some challenges too. The biggest challenge here are the scheduling, high availability, and dependencies. Often we are limited to after work hours or weekends, and who wants to manually take care of that? So how can we create and implement a strategy? In the beginning, we need to think about main differences when it comes to scheduling. We have critical, non-critical, and server systems. Non-critical systems won't have much dependencies or risk regarding data loss or outages. But we still want to inform the users and give them some flexibility. It is going to be a bit different for systems in high availability areas like hospitals or production environments, or where crucial data is being used and stored. For those critical endpoints, you want to limit restarts to specific timeframes and reduce the user interaction to a minimum or eliminate any influence at all. Servers will be similar, but again, here we are limited most likely to after hours. You might remember the one-size-fits-all issue a couple slides earlier. Even after categorizing our endpoints and servers, we will most likely end up with some exceptions. Some areas might require a full self-service or kiosk approach, especially in 24/7 areas or devices with shared usage won't have any suitable maintenance window. All you can do is offer the installation and updates and let the users get active whenever it suits their schedule. With the right solution in place, you still see the progress and reports, but the process itself won't be automated. Another case could be systems managed by a third party or being locked in a specific state. Lastly, we have the test devices and pilot users, who can be extremely helpful for your patch management. You can utilize machines like that for test purposes and essential feedback about your process. Now we have the different scenarios of which one might apply to you. As Twitter and Co., some of you might stick with the new adapted workflow of working from home. If not permanently, this is most likely going to be that way for a while, at least for most of us. Second option, your organization decides to go completely back to the way it used to be and will ask all employees to come back to the office. And I assume a lot of companies will actually go with the best out of both worlds and go with like a hybrid solution and offer more flexibility for the employees and let them decide when or how often to come to the office. Or maybe with like a fixed 3-day, 2-day solution. Whatever your organization decides to do, all of these ways come with some key challenges we have to be aware of. Let's start with the current situation where our users are working from home and will be staying there. You managed one of the biggest steps already, getting the users up and running to work from home. But even if the machines are not in the office, or maybe especially then, they need some care, and after they're not behind the firewall in your safe network, you want to know what's happening on your endpoints. So, a good inventory gives you status information, versioning, patch levels, etc. And that is really the bare basic you want to accomplish. A vulnerability assessment on top gives you early awareness if there are any open doors. Then you want to make sure the endpoints are up to date. The ones of you which work with a WSUS and logon scripts probably realize pretty quickly that is not made for this particular scenario. Let the users patch their machines themselves? Are they really taking care of this? What happens if something goes wrong? You know who's going to be responsible and blamed in the end. And not just Microsoft. As mentioned earlier, we have applications like Adobe which bring out several updates every month. You also want to be able to provide the users all the necessary applications they need. VPN clients, conference tools. What happens if something went corrupt and needs to be reinstalled? You probably don't want them and yourself have to come to the office every time for this. If there's no VPN connection, you have to find a different way than GPOs to enroll configurations and security settings to the endpoints as well. You can't tell for sure where the users are taking their PCs. And with no way to quickly remote wipe offline company data in case a device gets stolen or lost, you probably want to encrypt those devices. There are a lot of tools out there which either can be integrated easily into your unified endpoint management or are already. So you can make sure the devices or at least the necessary partitions are protected in case a user forgets their laptop on the competitor's parking lot again. That's at least no big issue when the endpoints are coming back to the office. You will encounter some of the same challenges, but in this case they behave a little bit different. Here it is very important to plan ahead before they come back into the office. We have two kinds of machines in that scenario. The ones which were left in the office and the laptops the users will bring back. On the office machines we need to know what is the status and what needs to be done before the users come back. If there's any patching process in place already, then it shouldn't be a big issue, especially if you can work with back on LAN. But we talked about new Windows versions, so it might be a good idea to consider doing the upgrade before the users come back. If you don't want to do the upgrade yet, you might still need to deploy some GPOs or registry settings to suspend the automatic Windows upgrade by setting up the semi-annual channel. Also, with the laptops you want to know upfront what happened on those machines, before they come back into the network. Did the users install any applications for their kids for homeschooling? What is outdated? Are there any critical vulnerabilities on the machine? Depending on this information, you need to get those machines up to date and fixed. I mean, sure, you could do that as soon as they are back in the network, but do you want them to join a network like this? Can the users even work when so many months of patches are getting installed? Anyways, you need to expect very long login times unless you do something about it. So it's a good idea to also plan ahead here and ideally patch them before they come back and just schedule tasks right. And then, are the users switching back to the office machines? Do they keep the laptops? Your users probably stored their data locally while working from home and maybe stored corporate data on private-owned devices. So you may need to provide options for backing up user data properly, like providing USB sticks or hard drives. And after the data and files might be compromised, you want to prepare a sandbox where data gets scanned by an antivirus first. Last but not least, we have the hybrid scenario. The hybrid scenario is pretty much a mix out of both worlds. It comes with some challenges from both, but also gives you more opportunities on how to manage your endpoints. After you can as well pick the best use cases from both worlds. So far from what I see, this is going to be the most common way companies will be moving forward with. Organizations realize that users can be really productive working from home, but don't want to lose track of them being always gone, right? Let's start from the bottom this time. How are the users handling their backups? Are they working via VPN and have access to network shares? If not, you might need to coordinate backups whenever they are back in the office. And here, of course, with the same precaution as mentioned before. With users coming in on a regular basis, you can patch them much better whenever they are in the office. But sometimes this might not be fast enough for security-related things. So with a process in place which allows you to patch in both worlds, you can take advantage of both. Everything big and bulky, for example feature updates or big CAT application updates, you can do whenever the endpoint is back in the office. But everything security related, like small application updates, Microsoft patches, you might want to do as soon as possible. So that brings us to the biggest challenge in the world of working hybrid. You have to be able to schedule things right. What should happen when the user works from home? What do I want to do when they are back in the office? How much time do I have when they are there? Is it a 3-day, 2-day scenario? Maybe I win an extra night for a big task to work per week on LAN. And even if it's not on the list here, the encryption is as much relevant here as it is in the work from home scenario. It might just take some more configuration to make sure the encryption doesn't get in the way of network functionalities like wake on LAN. So what can you actually do now? First, prepare your environment. Analyze what target groups your endpoints are, what scenario are you in right now, and what scenarios might come next for you. Do you have the right tools in place to cover all the possibilities and future changes? Then you want to create a schedule for your tasks. It is really important to have routines in place, fixed dates for each group depending on internal schedules and priorities. Test and adjust to see what is working and what needs to be optimized. Try different notifications and times. Possible optimizations which come up usually are something like bandwidth usage, different schedules, or needed hardware resources. These are all things you want to take into consideration for the next steps in your endpoint management. And after nobody can tell for sure what's going to be, you want to be flexible for every possible scenario. Does that seem familiar to you? Even though the last year was a big challenge for everyone, I think this little comic visualizes perfectly how important IT departments, and that means you guys, are for organizations. You are the ones which made it possible that your companies could keep running in these transitions. So, no matter how good your tools or processes were before, you conquered this challenge. For anyone who doesn't know Barmundi yet, we are on the market since over 20 years, founded in Germany and with our US headquarters here in Framingham, Massachusetts. And more than 3,500 customers in pretty much any business manage their endpoints with Barmundi today. Let me know if you have any questions. My colleagues and I will be available in the Q&A and at the virtual booth. Have a great day to connectors, stay safe, and talk to you soon.